Walker, Texas Angler subscribed at Tier 1. They subscribed
Hello.
for 42 months.
I'm
And
at
says
home,
MST3
and
thanks, MST3
we're doing
thanks.
more software
End of
development
line.
today. You know what? Oh, why can't I? Oh, I muted my own audio. Walker, Texas Angler, thank you for the Tier 1 sub and for 42. That's 42 months there. I appreciate that. That didn't go well? What do you mean that didn't go well? Did it sound wrong? I accidentally had my audio muted, so I couldn't hear that for a second. Remy Cap, you know what's really funny about you getting the band Python calculator? It had been so long since I thought about that there was actually an extremely high chance I would have screwed up and used it today without realizing it if you hadn't mentioned it in the comments. So you getting it meant that it actually was less likely to be utilized. So I just unearthed my soapbox so that I can fire that up if I need it for some math. Anyway, hello everyone. Hope your days are going well. So yesterday I released a video. I forgot to mention that at the end of stream. Tabbed away. I thought I heard Brabbling broke a failure. Then you talked over the deck talk. You know what? I probably have the keep alive sound effect muted. Give me one moment. Let me find that. Keep alive. Where is it? There it is. Boom. Not that. Hello. That's my hand. Ooh, that looks weird. It's all stretched. Yep. There we go. Stubby fingers. Long. Anyway. Hi. Okay. There we go. Now it won't do that. When I do home recordings, I have to mute it so I don't have that do anything weird. Okay. So, yesterday I released a video, and some people in the comments were trying to tell me about how I was doing software development wrong, and that there are tools that you're supposed to use now for software development. So I figured it's time. I should just cave. I should use one of the most popular software development tools that exists, because it's what people expect. So today we're going to use Excel for generating SQL table databases. Let's go ahead and get started. That's it. That's right. We're writing Media Basket in VBA. You can't stop me. Am I not hearing Duck Talk announcements? I am not. Oh my gosh. T2SDE and Raiders, hello and welcome. Let me figure out. Oh, you know what? I know exactly why I'm not hearing Duck Talk stuff. Let me fix that. There we go. Now I will hear deck talk. Hello, Raiders, and welcome. Today we're working on rewriting my disk ripping management software, and I heard it this time. Redshift, thank you for the tier 1 sub and for 49 months there. I appreciate that. You didn't. How did you not hear it? What? How? One moment. Let me try a thing. Close this. Open this. It did change. That's weird. Computers, man, am I right? Let me try this, and then this. Oh, look, all the chat cleared. Cool. Pipewire shenanigans. So, here's what it is. No Machine has 2 audio outputs. And one of these goes to this, and the other one I can hear. So, like, I don't hear that now, but I do hear, and then you guys hear that, but then this one, I hear, but you don't hear. So I think I do this one, and then I'm going to set this to monitor.
End of line.
Monitor and output. But then, I think you'll actually just end up hearing infinite feedback loop. Oh, I hear that now. It's really quiet, but I hear it. Okay, you guys aren't getting an infinite feedback loop, right? It's like fine. Okay, well, we'll just go with that, because that should work. Okay. Now we should both hear it. I forgot, so when I'm at home, I have to leave the remote desktop thing open. Yeah. Anyway. Flurry, thank you for the Prime sub and for 3 months. I appreciate that. I hope I'm just gonna look on the Twitch dashboard page, make sure that I have caught everyone, because now I'm all
I sent this cheer just to make you suffer. You're welcome. End of line.
And thank you for the 100 bits. I heard it. I think you guys heard it. So I think we're all good now. So is it Excel? No. We use Linux Excel. You heard it? Okay, good. Let me double check here. Okay, I think we're good. Alrighty. We're all caught back up and correct now. Okay.
Spaukin is gifting 5 tier 1 subs to TechTankins' community. They've gifted a total of 270 in the channel. End of line.
Spooky, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate that. Thank you. GNU Linux Excel. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so home stream today because we're working on software. What's the point in me driving to the office, burning dinosaur juice just to go sit at a different computer and do the exact same thing? So I figured I'll just stay home and we'll do this because there's no real reason to. So it's like different settings get the same result every time. I'm not sure what you mean. We have Excel at home, exactly. See Linux text installers, jingle from oil company plays my brain. Oh gosh. Okay. So where we left off yesterday was trying to think through the layout of the SQL database that is going to manage how we queue media samples that we intend to rip and handle the data samples that we extract from them. So the office has a better bathroom. Anyway, so the question becomes, the way that the software works, oh, you know what, hold on, I do need to So I forgot to commit the SQL stuff that we were working on yesterday, but that's kind of fine, whatever. So the Windows Accelerator stuff. What about Linux Accelerator stuff? I wonder if Linux ever actually did support 2D hardware accelerators. It's an interesting question. I think the stream settings we set and forget. Oh, well, that's because at home it's a completely different ballgame. The way that the deck talk is done at home is software driven, and then I don't normally have audio passed through from the server, so to do all that. It did? X486 did? Ooh, that's cool. So yeah, that's why it's different. Anyway. So the issue we are working on solving, let me go ahead and go to archive, single floppy. So this is one of those areas where I was saying, here's how the setup looks with the grease weasel acting as a single controller, because the grease weasel here has to delineate between floppy drive A and floppy drive B on the exact same device. When we rip a data sample, so for example, the ATI Ultra driver disks here, we generate multiple kinds of files. That one appears to be a failed rip. Let's go over to here. We generate multiple kinds of files. So in this, why is there no Flux folder in here? Oh, because I deleted it and zipped it so that I could upload it to archive.org. Yeah, Grease Weasel. It's that little green box that I use to connect floppy drives to modern computers. They are fantastic. Highly recommended. What? Creative Graphics Blaster? Interesting. Anyway, so the software I wrote creates multiple kinds of output. So for just demonstration's sake, I'm gonna re-extract this. So we create a Flux output, which has all of the individual CryoFlux raw tracks, and then we convert that into a binary image that is just the FAT12 file system that would be contained on the floppy disk. And then as a final step, I extract the files into individual files that we can then work with, and I do that using the Linux mtools command. So we have 3 different stages that run on floppy disks that we archive. We get Flux, we get a binary, and then we get files. But in parallel to that, we also get a status, which generates an image file that we can look at that shows us what the Flux data looks like. Actually, I think this is one of the ones where I had it rip the Flux multiple times or something along those lines, because the initial image looked terrible. But anyway, I'm not going to sweat that too much. So you can see how we end up with multiple data types. So we're trying to figure out how to demonstrate this or store this in a relational database, an SQL database. And that gets complicated because we have media samples. So this would be one floppy disk. So let's say the ATI Ultra disk 1. All right. This would get database ID, let's just say 12. It will be assigned to controller. We're going to use plain names, say FD505. All right. The drive can be dynamically assigned, or it could be statically assigned, I realize, because in the instance of something like this, I might want to statically assign it because it's going to need to be the 5 1/4" drive, but I'm not 100% sure. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, because that's a little weird. So we'll just say this is B for right now. I don't have other data points yet, but over in data samples now, what we will have is we'll have ATI. Actually, it will just basically be this. Yeah, overwrite. But then it would be subdata Flux. All right. So we don't really need to actually, you know what? Let's just do this type. Let's not even name that. So Flux. All right. So Flux as a data type will be assigned to media ID 12. So that tells you that this is over there, and then it will be, files. It'll be out/flux, whatever. That would be where the files are. This will get its own ID. Let's just say this is ID 212, okay? But the problem that we get to is that the flux data type that gets generated by the initial RIP here will then have other data types that can be derived from it. So first we can derive the FAT12 file system image here. So we'll have FAT12, but we can also derive the image that represents the flux through HXC. So we'll have I'm making this like a special data type, HXC underscore image. Now, in order, let's just go ahead and ID these sequentially to demonstrate that. Now, the problem here is we have to have handled as a row. And handled has to know that it has made a FAT12, and it has to know that it has made an HXC image. So the difficulty here is that we have a relational multi-dimensional database, because this is dimension 1, the linear single media samples. Dimension 2 is the data samples that come from this, and then dimension 3 ends up being handled. But having a database that tracks handled is kind of stupid. This is like the one time where I feel like Redis would almost make sense, because it's just straight up for key value pairs, and like having ID and handled would almost make sense for that. But involving a completely different kind of server database in this would be stupid. So we're not going to do that. Turns out ripping floppy is a lot more complicated than I thought. Well, this is when you're trying to do it at a ridiculous scale. So let me catch up on chat here. What's the difference between grease weasel and a slippery ferret? The ferret, it's a lot softer when you squish it than a grease weasel. Oh, well, what about the, I'm going to go with Tiga. Just call it that. Integrated CPU, GPU chips. It would be interesting. I don't know how that's going to work out, if I'm ever going to talk about that, because they're kind of just like a parallel development to both PGA and the 8514, and then didn't really have as much support, so it's kind of weird. It would be really difficult to talk about. So does the flux have any capacitance? No. It is all about magnetic changes. So let's see here. And then you guys are talking about the 3D card. So anyway, we need to figure out how we want to store this data, which is where this is annoying. So, is it worth just having one column of the database be a list like this? So this is what we were debating yesterday, to decide how this is going to work. Because one thing that is pretty much guaranteed to happen here is that there's going to be a config value here that is JSON config data. So this will be config data. So there's going to be JSON data in this that represents the config data for how that will work. Like, let's say we want to pass a specific parameter to redumper or something, and that we need to specify that there. Or for floppies, we want to specify that this is an IBM PC 1.2 megabyte 5¼ inch disk, and that's how the Grease Weasel convert step will know to treat it as a FAT12 image instead of just a raw binary image. So we absolutely need to be able to pass arbitrary configuration data through here, and then the different handlers are actually going to read through that. So the way this will work is we'll have config, and then there'll be a list, and then in that list there will be, say, flux, and then it will have its stuff, and then there will be FAT12, and it will have its stuff. So no matter what, there's going to be JSON data in the database. It's unavoidable. So exFAT, well, I don't think exFAT was ever put on a floppy disk. So Super Joker question. I've heard of FAT32 now FAT12. Does that mean there are 30 other FATs? No, it is just FAT32, FAT16, and FAT12. So FAT12 is kind of the weird oddball one that was only for floppy disks. I mean, maybe if you were really determined you could put it on a hard drive, but it was essentially only for floppies. And I believe there are 2 versions of it. Ben here will know more than me about that. Because, well, EXFAT is kind of different. EXFAT is not really derived from actual fat. There's fat 8 tube. You'd be unlucky to stumble across as anything else knowing without what it is. Yeah, no one would ever think that there'd be a weird fat file system like on a dot. Local H got there first. Yeah. MSX DOS. Ooh, interesting. You've totally put it on a hard drive, haven't you? I don't believe I have. Yeah. But yeah, there are weird versions of fat out there that are just a little rarer, but the FAT12 is dedicated for floppies, essentially. So, one of your attaboys about driving dies, connected USB adapters. Yeah, it's unfortunate about the dying drives. So, yeah. So anyway, we're guaranteed to have JSON data here. This could be a JSON list. I just don't know if it actually makes sense to bother with that because, I mean, it doesn't need to be any more complicated than just CSV. So I'm not sure how to handle that. Dumb question here. Okay, let me just ask this. How difficult is it to let me bring up the SQLite documentation. SQLite. Okay. Now, subqueries or compound queries. I'm trying to think. So for SQL, I know you can run a query that like pulls in data from another table and then lump that into your existing thing. I'm wondering if maybe we do make another table that is handled data over here and then put this and then this ID in there. But I don't know, it just sounds like a waste of time. Sounds like a simple join. Well, no, because what I'm getting at is we would do this, get rid of that. Okay, let's do that a little differently. Delete, you know what? Nah, whatever. This, yes, I don't care. No, I don't want to middle click paste that ID. Actually, we don't even really need that ID. This will just be the type ID. These don't actually need a unique key. So type ID, this would become FAT12, and then HXC image, and then this would share this here, and then, oh no, this does need a unique ID. Curses. ID, and then let's just say 310, whatever. Oh no, that doesn't work either. Wait a minute. Oh no, we don't need that. So we just don't have this. And then what we would end up doing is making a virtual field for the database where we CSV these in the result there. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it. Get DB browser, allow you to create and mess around. Ooh, I didn't know that was a thing. Insert into table, select values from table 2. Well, that's different. That's not quite the same because this is now a third dimension to the table. This is what to the data. That's where this changes. I think this is a terrible idea. I'm actually really curious about DB browser. Sounds like I'm talking about Doogie Howser, but that's a different thing. Let's see. Download. There is no database here right now, though. Windows, Mac, Linux, app image. Thank you. That's the best way to send out something like this. Boom. Okay, I'm just gonna pop this. right there. Let's go grab this really quick. So it's folder, like this, and then util this. And then we will copy DB here, and then I'm just going to take action Q for now. Put that there. Okay. Where did I put DB? Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. Okay, so let's try this. Yeah, go ahead and continue. Run. Please don't blow up my stuff. Ooh, nice Qt database. And then we'll pop that in there. No database file open. Oh, this is the downside to this. DB SQL. Oh, it hasn't been run. No database file open. Okay, hold on. Open database. db.db. There we go. Okay. So just for kicks. CRT in the background, the headphones look like Hacker from 90s movie. I haven't looked at this. I've used pgadmin, and then I forget exactly what it was. When I was taking classes on this stuff, there was this really nice web-based SQL relational database, like node graph website that I really enjoyed. The browse data. Interesting. Okay. Execute SQL. Okay. So, all right. Interesting. So you're just catching up. SQLitebrowser.org. I don't really want to upload my database to a website, though. Oh, wait, is that the URL? Oh, that is the URL. I'm smart. Anyway, okay. Drop down at the top allows you to change your view. So we don't actually have a database yet, to like be clear. We're not trying to make a thing yet. Mostly just speculating. Although this could be interesting. So add field. Okay. Wow, there's only, I kind of like the simplicity of there only being 5 data types. That's kind of cool. Okay, just for kicks. Auto increment, yes. I assume that's what that is. It is indeed. Okay, primary key, yep. Well, I don't know what this is. Integer, not null. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it by default is not null if it's that. Unique, also, if that's the primary key, that's inherent. Okay. Default. Okay. Check. I don't know how that works. Collation. Foreign key. Okay, that's cool. We don't have another table to really do anything with. Okay. References. Yeah, but I didn't put anything in there. Can I clear that? Let's just, nope, can't edit this. Okay. Cancel. Microsoft Access still a thing? Probably, unfortunately, yes. Let's create index. Is an index a view? Index. Create index consists of create index, follow the keyword on. It is, yes, okay. So it would be possible Well, we don't have SQL to execute against yet. That's why we're doing this in Excel, just because we're at the planning phase still. It'll be easy to kind of get a feel for what we can do. Well, right now, I'm okay-ish playing around with a table or a database that actually has data in it so I can get a feel for what this tool can do.
Thrasher 976
give me 1 second here. I don't have...
Tier 1. They've subscribed for 12 months, currently on a 12-month streak. End of line.
Thrasher, thank you for the tier 1 sub there, and for 12, that's this many months there. Thank you, I really appreciate that. With your expected loads, I don't think indexes would be necessary. No, definitely not. So I'm just trying to decide if for something like, say, this relation between media samples and data samples, in theory, we could index that. But again, this becomes multi-dimensional, which I don't know if I want to do. I don't know. I think if the SQLite Python interface could create a dictionary-based output from the index where I could have a field here that is data samples that is populated with this data as like a sub-dictionary, that would be awesome. So if that's how fields work, then I'm willing to do all of this. So I think I want to try reading some of the docs on that. Now we're talking about object relation type deal. Yeah, SQL, Lite, Python. Let's just look this up. Well, Frosty Wolf, it's more how it's represented in the native language that's making the SQL call. That's what I want to know. So if it... Because if I remember correctly here, we get from our query, if I open this up, from our query, we get row data, read, cursor, execute, fetch all. So yeah, we get row data. And then what I end up doing is taking that and then using a wrapper function or something to convert it to a dictionary. So yeah, db to dict. So I use this to iterate through every single row to convert it to a dictionary. Reading some of the docs, we're allowed to do that now. When do I not read the docs, though? The downside to reading the docs is that it's boring, but right now we're kind of doing something boring already, so it's within scope. But oh my gosh, sorry. Ugh. Sounds like an insult leveled at someone who works at IBM's database. Ugh. Got something weird going on with my nose. Sorry. Brain. It depends on how the data is represented in Python. That's what this comes down to. So if I can do a multi-dimensional query and have the data be returned as a dictionary that just like kind of makes sense, then I'm happy. Maybe we set up a synthetic test here. Maybe we should do this. So maybe we should build a database that has a relational query and then just see what that looks like. Because I don't know what this will do on the Python side. know what? It might be that I have this fan blowing directly in my face. Let me turn that off. Then I'm just going to be hot, but maybe my nose won't be so weird. Yeah, look at they say something about joins. Yeah, join. Join is not mentioned on this page at all. Cool. All right, let's try this. Let's use the DB browser. Let's make a new database. Populate it with some sample data and then see what we can get out of it. So new database. Let's just do test. Okay. Let's add a field, integer, auto increment, unique, primary key, all that fun stuff. ID. Okay. And then it doesn't need anything else. And then we'll make this name, make it text. And then that's basically all we need. So we'll go ahead and name this table names. Okay. Database names. Perfect. That'll work. And then we'll make a new table. And then we will add an ID, unique, auto-inc, primary key, ID, add. And then let's say, let's just call this food. We'll just make a list of food that people like. So this will also be text. And then foods. Okay. So, modify table, editing table requires save all, sure, save, whatever. Oh, I don't want to modify the schema. I want to add data. Browse data. Okay. Foods. Okay, so I'm kind of a little sad that it doesn't just give me like a form over here to insert data with. Salt and vinegar crisps, those are, you know what, those are number one. Yeah, those are excellent. How do we do this? How do we insert data? I mean, I guess insert into foods. Salt and vinegar. Chips. Name. Oh, wait, no. Food. That was what I called it, right? Yeah. Okay. I think. No, that's not right. Hold on. Insert. It's got like a weird way that you do this. Okay. Insert into schema name dot table name values. Okay, so we have to put values. Values. Okay, so it's that first. So I could also just kind of look at my own code, but you know. Food. Values. There we go. That'll work. Okay, so that'll work in theory. Run. Query finished. Boom, we got a food. Okay, perfect. Alrighty. Now we got pizza. Would have just used the insert button in the toolbar. But wait, where was that? Hold on. Let me just run that. Wait, insert button. Okay. Save table. Print. Insert a new record in. That is slightly easier. Like NASA. How do you know? Is that it? Yeah. Okay, there we go. Apply. Okay. And then that one. And then wait, that was the key. Discard. Hot dog. Insert. Hamburger. Okay, what does this do? Why is there like an extra line of text? Am I adding a line? I don't like that. Did somebody say food? Yeah. Okay, we got 5. That's probably good enough. Why is 2 over 1? Excuse me. There we go. Oh, is it alphabetized? You know what? I don't want to know. There we go. Okay, now let's add some names. Insert. Oh, we didn't add a foreign key. Wait, I screwed that up. We'll fix that in a moment. Jeff. Jane. And then Bob. You know what? Boy, but sure. And then Betty. All right, that'll work. Salt and vinegar chips is plenty foreign enough. What do you call them? Crisps? Is that gonna be it? Okay. But you would still have the salt and vinegar. Okay, we need to add a new... we need to edit the schema. Database structure, foods. Modify table. Yeah, did it say it was going to delete everything? It probably is. It deserves it. Okay, we'll do this. That's not unique. ID. This will be name or ID underscore name. There we go. Go. Browse data, foods. Okay, so we're okay there. I have a feeling we're about to wipe out all of this, so I'm just gonna... Oop, there we go. Okay. Modify table. Now, foreign key to names and ID. Why do I... Foreign key clauses? Is that actually necessary? Did you spell vinegar wrong? I don't know. Try add constraints without deleting data? I don't know. Just add that. Okay, browse. Now what? So let's say we have 1 through 4. So this is 1 and 1. And then 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay. So select from names star where ID equals I always forget how you do this. Hold on. Select blah 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 from... Oh, you have to select star from names where key equal or ID equal 1. Let's just try this. Go, Jeff. Okay. Now, how do I left join? Left join. I think I'm going to look this up here really quick. Documentation. Join. Okay. These almost make sense. Ortizo, I do appreciate that. Thank you. Names and oh, so you join on instead of where? Join on. Hold on. Join operator. Yeah, but how do I see, like, join stuff? Put aliases in my query out of habit. Yeah, I kind of am looking to do it without compound select. Ooh. Order by. Yeah, so this is, I think, what we're going to want. 2 or more simple select statements may be combined to perform a compound select in the union. Yeah, this is what I want to get to. This might actually be what I want. I do really hate how the SQLite website does not give examples. Would have searched for examples first. That's the thing, is that they don't have examples on this website as far as I'm aware. Frequently asked questions. Where are examples? Examples. Let me look at this. I'm not familiar with this website. SQL select. Okay, select 1 plus 1. Oh, now I'm just feeling stupid. No. Why? Okay. I'm gonna complain about this. Why on earth are they starting out by showing math in this? I didn't even know you could do math in SQL statements. Like, sure, I learned something, but I learned something completely irrelevant. This is a terrible thing to start out with. Anyway. It's like the author was like, hey, this is crazy. You can do math. I'm going to make that be the first example. Okay. Join on. They go straight from math to like a join statement? Good grief. Okay. Select from table, join on table, join condition, where row filter, order by something, something, something. Same way you use Python as a calculator. Python calculator makes sense, though. Okay. What is the difference inner join versus left join? Relational database, data is often distributed between many tables. Tables associated, I mean, that's going to be the exact same thing as this. Similar to the inner join, left join clause is an optional clause. Select statement, use left join query. Can't criticize, use Perl for that. Nah, rebel. That skill's almost as bad as reading Barry x86 machine code. Require both sides of the join to be present. Left join will not. Okay, so yeah, definitely left join then. Because when we get the list initially, if it's in the queue and it hasn't been ripped yet, there will be no data. So we definitely want left join then. Okay, select. We're going to still select. Actually, do I need to specify the select name or names dot name and foods food from names left from names foods left join foods on ID names dot ID equals foods dot ID name. It will work, but it'll get bad result. Let's find out. That ambiguous name foods dot food. Why is that ambiguous? Foods. I mean, it recognized. Ambiguous name foods dot ID name. What? Drop foods from the tables list. Leave it only after the join. Okay. All right. Yeah, so this is not what I want. Okay. So this is where I want to see if we can... This might be where the compound query comes in. So this is how I would have assumed the SQL stuff would have done this before. So I want to see if we can make a new column that is foods that will then put this as a CSV in there. All right. So we're getting somewhere. Dude, I kind of like this tool. This is awesome. I really, really like this. Also, apparently, I don't think SQL is complete enough for that. Yeah, maybe. That's not going to be as easy. Indeed. Yeah, see, that's what I was getting at. Don't think you can do that in a query. I'm not so sure about that. I don't know if you can do it in a query in SQLite. You can do all sorts of grotesque things in SQL. But I don't know if you can do that. So does this have compound queries? Let's find out. Compound queries. Compound query. Is it where we're trying to get? I'm not exactly sure what you mean. So we need to be able to have the list of all foods that Jeff likes in one row and not have multiple instances of Jeff. That's what we need. Nothing found. Well, I don't like you either. Okay, hold on. Compound. There we go. Compound select. Okay. Two or more simple select statements may be combined together to perform a compound select using the union all. That's what I want, union. Let's look at union. Union. I know how to spell union. I don't know how to spell. I spelled it correctly. Okay. It's like an onion, but U. Okay. SQLite has useful aggregate function. I don't want union. Okay. But if I don't union, how am I going to get fair wages? No. What do I want then? What's that aggregate doodad? Select group concat. Use concatenates. Can't read directional names. That's fine. Group concat function returns a string which is a concatenation of all non-null values of x. Interesting. Okay. So okay, I think that's aliasing that cat name track list. I mean, I approve of their first album here. Okay, so hold on. They first show their tables. So we have table, just straight up T. Okay. New table T. Insert 3 strings. Third, query the table. Yeah, we got doodads. Fourth, create the following statement: group concat. Contain all values in the val column. Okay. You don't want to use comma as a separator. Okay, you can pass a specific delineator. It seems like it's going to give us a string no matter what. So here's my thing. At the scale that this is going to be operating at, which is one user up to like 5 drives at a time at most, I think it doesn't make sense to put all of this weird syntax into SQL versus just doing 2 queries and then assigning the data to the Python dictionary after the fact. Because no matter if we did this, all right, and we got this, what I'm going to have to do is just take that string and then split it and then reassign it back to the dictionary anyway. So no matter what, I'm going to have to reinterpret that data into a list in Python as opposed to the CSV. So, yeah. For example, I get what you're saying here. I get that. But what I'm saying is it looks like it's going to output a string that is a CSV for that. And that no matter what, I'm going to have to post-process that in Python to get it into a dictionary output. So it would make more sense to just do 2 SQL queries and then use more simple syntax and then just convert the list. Yeah, no matter what you do, I'll need to do that. Exactly. So what I'm getting at is I could make some kind of messy, weird SQL statement like this, or I could do 2 simple SQL statements and then just not think about it. And I think I should do that. You need to use some kind of ORM? I'm not sure what you mean. Yeah. If it could do that, then I think it would maybe make sense. It would depend more on the Python side, but prepare protocol objects. Style adaptation for objects that can adapt themselves into native SQL types. What's this? Okay, so this is a Java serialize kind of thing, I think. I don't know what ORM is. I need that acronym expanded. Object relational model? Is that what that is? Later version SQLite, support returning JSON objects if you're that insane. Object relational mapping. Okay, each table is represented by a class. That I'm fine with. So this seems like the read version of that. I don't know if there's a write version to create the class. I'm all for doing that, actually. This is actually exactly what I would prefer to do. So I'm okay doing this. We were going to make classes for the media samples and stuff anyway. The whole point here is to rewrite this away from just using giant dictionaries and RAM. So using a class that represents a data type in the database. And then the other thing that we need the class to be able to do, and one of the reasons why I was always going to use a class, is we're going to serialize the full data set for each media sample into the JSON file to store with the media sample data, and then deserialize that to the database again on launch next time. So there was always going to be a class. So if we just, I guess, ORM this from the beginning, maybe this would work. Would be a very nice exercise. Kinda. I mean, yes. Having the code be nicer is the entire purpose of what we're trying to accomplish here. Because, again, let's look at what the non-nice version looks like and ends up as. Because the non-nice version becomes this, where we have so many layers of multi-dimensional dictionaries in the code, and that's not a rare thing, and it's not the only thing that's like that. We have this for other areas too. So I'm trying to eliminate this kind of stuff in memory here. That's the whole goal. I want this to be in the database, especially the group stuff, because that's the real-time managed thing. We're also going to have everything for the media sample stuff here too, which also gets to be pretty annoyingly multi-dimensional. So wrapping this in a class, which I did not do from the beginning, would help a ton. And then having the class be mappable to a database would help a ton as well. Okay, so let's look that up. Let's look into this a little bit more. Adapt Python values, SQLite values. Okay. Only limited data types natively to store custom Python values in SQL databases. Adapt them to one of the native types. Understands. Seems to be recommended built-in. Let me look. SQL Alchemy. Regard database toolkit object relational mapper. Implementation written in Python. Provides generalized serial interface for creating and executing database agnostic code without needing to write SQL statements. SQL Alchemy Core Plus ORM? What? Database connector? I don't know. Hmm. So what you're saying is the standard is to have your language specific object be handed off to a third party library that then converts it into SQL dynamically, and then you never go look at and touch the SQL database, and you have no idea how the SQL database is set up. Is that what I'm understanding? Because I don't fully get this. I don't know. That kind of really bothers me. Hmm. So on the one hand, yeah, you skip having to know SQL at least at first. Yeah, that's the thing. Obviously, I'm not an SQL expert. I understand how SQL works, but yeah, I see. I'm not a library person. The things that I use because I have to, or because they do something so mind-numbingly simple that I don't want to have to do it myself, like the humanized library that takes an integer and then converts it to like megabytes, from bytes or something. And then on the other end of the complexity scale, I don't want to have to write my own interface for an SQLite file, so I use the SQLite library. But this is that annoying middle manager land of SQL or of libraries where it is a library that interfaces with a library on your behalf. And that's where I don't like to go. I am trying to consider this seriously, though, because this is going to be core to undoing the just terribleness of, yeah. Shelley dislikes middle management. I mean, yes. Who doesn't? Best part for the scenario you're talking about is relationships between tables being completely transparent and automatic. So you'd have your person objects, and you just call foods, person foods, and boom, list foods associated with person. I know, I get that. And I get that it's probably a common enough thing where this is accepted. I can understand that, the Mad Beagle. Basically, no modern solutions use raw SQL and code. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why I was so eager to recommend stored procedures yesterday. That's one of the reasons why I like that. Assume it won't work for edge cases that you'll need it to. I don't know that that's true. I think it could get messy with something like this. So, like, here's a question, okay? I mean, man, I don't understand. This is a completely different kind of thing to me. So, why is there no syntax highlighting on this? Scale CSV to ask you how many problems you want. So, we're at the CSV end of the spectrum right now. That's the problem. Is that we're just doing CSV and RAM. But okay, let me think about this. So, we define a rough table in code land here as our class. They're not showing how you would I don't understand at all what Flask has to do with this, for one. That's weirding me out slightly. Sure. Or M quick start, because that's kind of what I'm looking at. Okay, class user, table name, user account, mapped, int, column primary key. So it's just SQL as code. So address, this is what I wanted to see. Mapped user, so we're using a string to represent this class, I assume. Because what I'm getting at is, I mean, it doesn't seem like it quite dynamically generates this. And frankly, I do think an ORM is a fit, though. That's the thing. That the data we need to store here, because I do have that. It's you know what? Let's do this way. From here, look, there's the hard drives I ripped with the attaboy. It's these. So we go to status. We can look at this. Basically, this is what I need to put into the database. So let's ignore the config data for right now, because that is all one thing. And it's probably not going to be as much later on. Why is this broken now?
89 raiders from parts people have joined. End of line.
Parts people and raiders, hello and welcome. I hope your day is going well. We are looking at how to do a bunch of nonsense in Python dealing with my media ripping needs for things like this robotic CD ripper, or this, it's really buried, FD505 dual floppy drive ripper. And the difficulty comes from trying to figure out how to manage this stuff. So I have been working on a website or not a website, a web front end for a project. And the code base has become unmaintainable. It's like this is just stupid. So I'm trying to rewrite it in a way that's more sensible, and I'm trying to decide on my first order concepts right now for how I'm going to define the rest of the code, so that I eliminate as much technical debt as possible. So we're doing some more project planning right now than anything else, taking a look at some different ways that we could store the data that I need to store, and we're looking at the data that I need to store right here, although this doesn't seem to be as complete as I thought. Oh, this is config data here. Yeah. Why is there no... Apparently I haven't been saving the data related to floppies. That's weird. Or maybe it's because I reprocessed this. Let me look at the old outputs for this. Maybe that has everything because it wasn't run through multiple times. Let's see. There we go. That's what I want. Okay, so let's get rid of the config data, and then we'll look at this. Just assume this is a list, but the list doesn't matter. Okay. So this is what I'm trying to represent in the database, essentially. So we have all of the information that is unique to the actual media sample. And then we have the data that is represented as the outputs. So for each output, we have a block here. But then the difficult part is the processed by, because these can be processed by multiple things. So flux gets handled by data handler flux to create the binary, but it can also be handled by the HXC image generator, HXC image, essentially. So I'm trying to figure out how to track the data that is output and managed here, which has its own stuff, but then also the processed by. And I'm trying to think about what the data table layout should be. Data handlers. What it should all look like. So we're looking at right now using an ORM to do this, which is very far off of anything I've ever done before. So we would have, let's just pseudocode this a little bit. So we'd have multiple classes here. Why are these not in the CSS as a prefix or something? We'd have multiple classes here. Let's just get rid of that nonsense. We don't. Replace all. Okay. So we would have class media sample, 3 tables classes, kind of. Canonical approach be data files, process by, or separate tables. That's kind of what I'm thinking here. But it's just, this is literally key value kind of thing. But the key is not unique. We can have multiple values related to that key. It's just kind of eh. Okay. Tools, highlighting, scripts, Python. Default DE was KDE. I'm sure it was. KDE's been around for a long time. Okay, so we'd have table, media sample, media underscore sample. All right. So we'd have mapped int, primary key, whatever, name, mapped column, string. This part's a little weird since apparently there are no varchars, but whatever. No, was that old? Oh, yeah. So full name, let's just say drive or whatever. Address, back populates user. That I don't understand, but let's just not think about that right now. So we need to do this kind of Class base? What is declared a base? SQL, alchemy. Ah, okay. Ooh. Ugh. Okay, so an address has a user assigned to it. And then it has a mapped doohickey. I assume this is just a serializing object, so I'm not going to bother copying that yet. So this would be data or data sample. All right. Data sample. Each one of these would have a unique ID, but then it would be mapped to a media sample, where the media sample... No. So media sample comes after this. And then that has a mapped data sample. Data sample. My CRT does work? Oh, yeah, absolutely. So data sample, data sample. So that's the relationship from both ends. Addresses. Oh, so in this case, user has addresses. Mapped list of... Oh, okay. Okay. So this is... Huh. So the address is the end point. Or is the exit point? However you want to think about it. This is saying I provide this, I guess. So... Media sample mapped. Media sample back populates addresses. And then this, I think, references this. And then this is different. So for media sample, and then I see that this would go above this. I don't know if the order actually matters. Get rid of those stupid triple dots. Rather than addresses, we would have data samples. So it would look like this. And then be a list of data sample. Back populates user. User ID? No. Okay. Back populates... I guess unique... I don't like... This is a weird thing for me. I don't like unique key names like this. I prefer just ID, but I guess ID data will just... Because you're supposed to use the key name or the table, so table.data or table.id. Many addresses to one user, the kind of thing you want. Yeah, I understand that. So ID. Okay, so this is unique. User ID. There is a model FAT higher M. It's a very specific variant. The model M is PS2. ID is typically reserved. You do not need to reference the IDs directly. So why are they doing this then? Yeah, Model M's go for stupid money. I don't know what to recommend for that. Just a different mechanical keyboard, I think. Unfortunately. Model M's are fine, but I wouldn't say they're the be-all end-all of keyboards. Set up the foreign key. I mean, I'm confused. And hello, David. What you hear is 100 local keyboard enders pounding angrily on your door. It maybe 10 years ago, yeah, the Model M was kind of king of the hill, but nowadays there's enough options that you don't need to go Model M. They're not all necessarily less expensive, but you don't have to go Model M. Generates a DB from objects that didn't have the foreign key setup would probably fail at runtime. So my only thing about that is I thought that the whole point of this was to avoid foreign key kind of type stuff. I don't know. Look at this off stream. The thing is that this is we're either I wouldn't have looked at ORM if I hadn't started looking at this on stream. That's the thing. So yeah, drought of good keyboards, yeah. Mechanical resurgence 10 years ago. I feel old now. One of the reasons why I'm doing this on stream is to be open to ideas for how to handle this slightly differently. Because if I wasn't doing this on stream, I would have just done this all as raw SQL, and I probably would have just done this. Actually, I probably would have made this as a string and the thing. I probably would have skipped that one. The thing that is bothering me, let me just say this out loud. This feels like just doing SQL in Python. Like we're just defining the entire database in Python instead of SQL, and then this is just going to run the SQL in the background. So we're running SQL, but we're not running SQL. We're just, we're just putting a sheet over the keyboard, and then we're typing through the sheet and pretending like we're not actually typing on it. So that's kind of where what I'm feeling like here. And I don't really like things that do that. But the main benefit is that it's somehow going to handle this. This is the part that is the secret sauce. Yeah, I think I kind of share Super Scott. You're putting easier in quotation marks. I don't think it's easier. I think it's just different. Yeah, Ben, and I'm wondering why not just do it myself? That's what I'm getting to, because I was going to say I'm just going to, instead of, having it be some kind of complicated compound query, I would just have it query it again when I go to try and pull this out. So I'd pull this out, and then I would go, okay, now I need data samples, and I would take this ID, then I would pull a query against this where data sample has the media ID that equals 12 on all of these. And then I would populate that into here's a list. I would rather just know SQL. Like that's the thing. I think I'd rather just do the SQL. Time Rails engineer. Yeah, I get it. But I personally, I think that this is too thin of a layer between the Python code and this. There's one benefit I can see to this. And that is that does this full power flexibility SQL. Hold on, I want to look up one installation. God, just pip install doodad, right? SQL Alchemy DB API. So you're not doing anything complex. Both are valid approaches. ORM stuff. You can have all your stuff come back as dicks already. It's pretty much what ORMs are for. You can do it by hand if you prefer that. So what I was gonna say is, I think the one area where this would really be beneficial is that this abstracts the SQL interface if you want to be able to change your SQL backend. That seems worthwhile. Because if I can just plug in a different SQL backend to this, that makes sense to me. But I'm never going to do that. It's never not going to be SQLite. What I was doing effectively was making my abstracted SQL interface by creating the DB object right here. Oh, I could definitely understand that. Yeah, I could see a C++ version of this being a godsend. For sure. 100%. So, yeah. All right. Some years ago, when I made my first webpage for where I worked, tried to find some of this SQLite database. I wade through seemingly endless, pointless ORM implementations. I found something that let me just write SQL. Yeah. So I wouldn't say I'm great at SQL, Super Scott. I'm eager to learn SQL. I like knowing SQL. But I should grab singular object and traverse this tree without ever caring for how the data got there in the first place. Yeah, I think if I didn't also want to serialize it to JSON myself, it would make a lot more sense. But I'm going to have to get my fingers deep into the data no matter what. So I think maybe it just makes sense to do it this way. I want to follow a repository pattern. You mean the database layout? So like this without it? So as far as the grabbing the single object, I'm probably just going to write a class that queries the database and then does the multiple depths of querying that it needs to is part of the constructor or whatever, however I'm going to do this. And then it'll just build that out all on its own. So automatic serializers, converting object trees in JSON for Python. Oh, for sure. No, 100%. It's just JSON dumps. Yes. It's the easiest thing. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's assume we're going to do this the stupid way, and we're just going to do our own flat databases that we're going to manually query. We are going to have relations, but we're not going to use the relational part within SQL, I think is how we're going to handle it. So technically these will be foreign keys, but it won't matter because we're never going to do anything with it through SQL that's foreign key like. And then I think that'll be how it works. I assume that's how SQL Alchemy or something like that handles that in the back end. Anyways, is that it probably doesn't do the crazy, ridiculous queries. It probably just does it as multiple steps. The stupid but it works. It's not stupid. Yeah. All right. So let's think about this now. we're gonna make 3 tables. We're gonna have this be the media thing. We want action queue as well, but that's a different problem. I can copy that back if I want that. Okay, so key. I have learned don't use key as a key. That's a terrible idea. So we'll go with sample. Media. I'm going to get rid of the sample part. Just call it media. We'll just call it media data. Because that kind of makes more sense. Okay. ID underscore media. We'll just do this. Primary key sending timestamp. I always want the timestamp for when it's created. All right. I'll leave all that as we build this in. Okay. So this is just rough sketch out. Name. Description. Wow. Description. Hated your media sample term, not entirely sure how, but it just sounds misleading. So let's say you are massively duplicating disks, all right, and you want to validate that they worked. You would take, and then you're going to validate them by running them through the software. You would take, say, 3 samples from your 100, 200 disks that you made and rip them through. So I guess, I don't know. I in my head, most things have been archived already, and this is a sample that is an example of that particular thing. So, like, Weird Al running with scissors. I'm not going to be the first person to rip this. I'm going to rip it for myself because I want to convert the CD to flex. But yeah, I don't know. Rip a little bit of this disc to see what it might be. Oh, interesting. Okay, so you were thinking about it in a different context. I was thinking about it in the context of every copy of running with scissors that's ever been pressed. You were thinking about it as just a portion of this. Interesting. Okay, that's just different ways of thinking about it that I had not considered. But it's redundant in a way, so I'm just going to not bother. And it'll simplify the syntax a little bit. Media, description, controller, drive, and then I think that might be config. And that's just straight JSON. There's no way around that config. And it's always bespoke to this exact instance. Okay. I think that's it. Oh, I guess we can just look at the status of this. Okay. Name, type. Oh, yeah, that would be helpful. Type. Name. Type. Wait, is that a unique? Ah, great. Format. Pinky. Or no, pinky version. Group. That is a thing. You know what? Group over controller. Use a. Why is a? I guess group is a thing. Does SQLite have JSON B types? Does not matter. No, we're gonna serialize the JSON into a string, stick the string in the database, and then deserialize it when we pull it out. It'll be fine. I'm gonna call this drive group. I will call this media format. Be a little bit more clear. I know it's. I guess it's media dot format. That's fine. Whatever. group config data, done. Yeah, we would have status. Status, int. And then time start, time end. TS underscore start. TS underscore end. Have nothing. Not sure why I have. Oh, that's actually. Yes. I'm glad I'm looking, because added start and end, those are different. So if you have one drive and you have 3 things in the queue, you're not ripping them all to begin with, but you still may want to track how long it takes to rip, so you need that. Yeah. Well, it's added to, I mean, it could be created, created. It's added to the list, the queue. Excuse me. Okay. Drive. Am I determining the controller from the drive? Excuse me. So what I want to do instead, logically, I want the user to assign a controller or a drive to a group. What is going on in my throat? Yeah. So let's say you have multiple optical drives plugged into your computer. There are 2 of them are able to rip CDs and DVDs. One of them is able to rip CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays. Well, let's ignore the Blu-ray part. You just have 2 disc drives. You put them in a group. That group is optical. When you go to start ripping, one disc may rip faster than the other. You're going to have to manually swap them out. There's no reason for the queue to be specific to each drive. It should just be specific to what the drives can do. So as you're ripping the media and pushing the button to eject them, you want it to assign a media sample to whichever drive is available. So it'll eject it out, tell you to put this disk in that drive. So you don't want to do anything specific to unique drives. You want to do that to the capabilities of that drive. So you put the drive in a group. The controller. Is there a difference between a controller and a group, though? Now I'm not understanding the architecture of my own code. Handler, controller. Hello, FlareSpire. Look at this. So, group 3.5, group 5.25. So I guess a group goes to a drive on a control. Yeah, it's different. Okay. Ooh, man, those are weird. Yeah, the controller group and drive relation is complicated. Thankfully, I don't think we need to maintain all of that in the database. Once we get things kickstarted and running, I think that gets managed. Will be able to be managed. Okay. Ugh. Because yeah, I forgot. In an example like I'm gonna just have to be able to pick it up here. The FD505, which is a floppy drive that has 1 Grease Weasel controller, but then has 5.25-inch and 3.5-inch drives. Each of those drives can only run one at a time because it's a shared controller. But the drives have different capabilities, so they have to be in different groups. So I think we assign a group to a media sample. I'm going to write this down because I'm going to forget this. Why wouldn't I just double click it? That's how I open it. concepts. Drives, groups, controllers. Hello, R programmer. Drives are, excuse me, individual media. Dude, I totally know how to spell individual media reading endpoints that are assigned to a group based on their capability. Drives are also assigned to a controller to manage their operation. Okay. Groups are how drives are selected for use by the user to start to queue a rip. I'll throw this out there while I'm thinking high level about all this stuff. If anyone has been interested in this software, but there's been like one thing you didn't like about PyDiscRip that was like, I'd rather write my own thing, I'd love to know what that was so that I can take that into consideration. If it's that, it's Linux only, I'm not going to be able to fix that. But if there was something weird that you didn't like about how it operated, I would love the feedback, because I would like for this to be useful for people. Just throwing that out there while I was thinking about the documentation here. Groups are how drives are selected by the user to queue a rip. If there are multiple drives in a group, the first free drive will be selected for the next item in the queue. Okay. Controllers run and manage drives independently of groups. Drives assigned to them are started. I feel like I'm using a cheat code when I look at you. I do vibe coding a little bit. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. Drives assigned to them are spawners going for a nice walk and a drizzle. Ooh. I would always go for a walk in the rain. Get some respite from the neighbor's band practicing. Run and manage drives independently of groups. Drives assigned to groups. No, to controllers will start and stop rips only when the controllers state they are ready. So, as an example, if you created a controller, or you should be able to configure a controller.
Is why walk in the rain to wake up when there is coffee. End of line.
No. Rain good. Rain is better than coffee. you reached a point where doing everything manually would have been faster. That will never be true. That's just not a consideration, because I'm never going to stop getting new media. So it will always benefit me in the future to work on this. Coffee's easier to find for you? I don't know. Let's see. Coffee? Nope. Coffee gone. But rain could just happen. It's not going to happen because this is a desert, but it could. Okay. Controllers run in independently. Groups. Assign controllers. Search stop groups. Only controllers state they are ready. Rain in Arizona, it's more likely than you would think. We get these things called monsoons, which let me put the words in the correct order here. Because Phoenix is in a valley, we get some weird stuff that happens with the way that clouds are corralled through, to where we'll actually get extremely intense rainstorms due to pressure buildup. So rain does happen, and when it happens, it can be ferocious here. Kind of interesting. For example, a controller could be a single grease example. Watching it rain approach 2 hours. When I lived out there, the clouds, they'll just hang there and ominously come close. Yeah, it's cool. You'll see the clouds with the rain streaking down, thinking, man, you could have just held out a little longer. Grease weasel. How do people come in here and suggest coding with AI? Not that often, actually. Okay. A single grease weasel. Do I ever code with AI? No. I have never and will never. With a 5.25 inch drive and 3.5 inch drive would have one controller that manages reading each drive on the shared bus. Actually, would have one controller manages each drive on the shared bus. Let's do this. 2 groups for, let's specify 1.2 meg. 1.2 meg. And 144 M groups for reading 1.2 meg and 1.44 meg disks. One controller that manages reading each drive on the shared bus. 2 drives for the different connections on the grease weasel. So the interesting thing about this and where this gets really weird is I could have 2 of these, okay, 2 exact FD505 setups like that. And the group for the 1.2 meg and the 1.4 meg drives would stripe across grease weasels, and then the controllers would still be per grease weasel. And this is where this matters, because I could assign multiple 1.2 megabyte disks to this, and then it could tell me to use different or multiple grease weasels, multiple controllers, and multiple drives for that. But then if I put one 1.4 meg disk in there, it has to block on one of them. Oh, man. I don't think I'm ever going to handle this, but technically, it should search for free controllers as well. Ooh. I never thought about that. All right. Back in a bit. Have fun. Try not to burn your database down by accident. All right. Have a good walk. We could be in a position where we have two FD505s connected, one to each grease weasel. And we would, if the first grease weasel would be the first controller, and then the two drives on the grease weasel would both be blocked because one is reading. But if I have a second disk type, let me rephrase this. We have two grease weasels. They both have a 1.2 and a 144 disk or drive. If I start reading a 1.2 meg disk in it, or in the first grease weasel, and then I add a queued item for the 144 disk, the way that the existing PyDiscRip would work is it would assign that 144 disk to the first grease weasel, which is currently blocking the drive access because it's stuck reading the 1.2 meg disk, when optimally it would use the other controller. That is a lot more complicated logic, but it would be, in theory, possible to handle that. So maybe I should handle that. I think I should. So, yeah. But anyway, we can cross that bridge when we get to it. So, let me continue making sure that I'm explaining this correctly. Single grease weasel 1.2 meg drive, 144 drive would have two drives for the different connections of the grease weasel, two groups for 1.2 and 144 meg disks, one controller that manages reading each drive on the shared bus. Okay, that is correct. If you added an additional grease weasel with the same drives, they could reuse the existing group, but would still groups. Hold on, I need to do a thing, because, oh gosh. Idiot. Dang it. You guys want to see something cursed? I don't know how easily I can show this. Hold on. Main source. That. Okay, wait, I didn't do it right. Okay, so this is camera, HDMI camera. I just happen to have mounted up above here. Look, it's you guys. Let's see, it's right there. Oh, that does not come across well. Yeah, there it is. Now you can see it. So, don't mind the auto exposure happening. So you see these two icons? Those are from this program. Okay. Kate does this thing every now and then where when you have a menu pop up, it doesn't properly clear, particularly with, like, let's say I'm trying to spell something over here and it tries to make a recommendation. So like grease weasel, sometimes this dialogue does not clear correctly and it will flicker. And I didn't realize it was flickering over this user interface right here, which caused the LCD driver to burn this in. Now, this is going to go away eventually, but you can see how it stays there no matter what is being displayed. LGR actually did a video recently about that monochrome compact laptop. He said that the power supply and stuff being corrected doesn't fix that. And I think it's because the LCD drivers are actually going bad on that laptop, which is not trivial to replace. So his instinct of trying to get a different LCD panel is probably correct. But yeah, so this happens. Now, this gets even worse. If you play Factorio Space Age and you get the turbo belts in that, those are the Vulcanus belts, those run at 60 items per second, but the animation speed, I believe, is 30. Or it's 120, actually. I don't know. But what ends up happening is that flickers back and forth between two images at 60 hertz, and you can have the exact same thing happen here. So what's going on is because the flicker from the KDE menu alternated on and off and on and off every other frame, it was causing the LCD to drive these pixels really harshly. So you can have burn-in from belts on Factorio on a 60 hertz display because of that. So it's the exact same thing. But yeah, this is... and you can see as I've been talking about it, it's slowly faded away. I have not tested if there's a correlation between trying to make it redraw something over it. But yeah, it will eventually go away. But yeah, fun little LCD quirk that you can see there. And one of the many reasons I would really, really like to switch to OLED eventually. Let's go back to this. There we go. All right, back to business as usual. So yeah, that's a fun screen. This is probably IPS, but you'll definitely see the same thing on other displays. Matter of fact, if you want to go back and watch my video on the ViewSonic X724, I believe it is, or V724, titled World's First Gaming LCD or whatever, you'll see overdriving as an example that is done on LCDs, in particular on the PlayStation 3D display. That is also a cause of this. So you can see that happen on a VA panel as well. So with OLED, you can get burn-in a new way. Yeah, this is temporary burn-in, but the thing is that I have to be on top of watching for that. With KDE, for some reason, if I open YouTube, I'm just straight up YouTube on this monitor in full screen, or some pages with dark backgrounds, actually, particularly dark backgrounds that alternate in a particular way, it will cause the LCD drivers to flicker the entire top of the monitor, which will cause the burn-in for the entire title bar. So it's really fun. Specific to IPS, known as a feature of IPS, it's used in interlacing. It's IPS image retention. Ooh, okay. I'm not familiar with that. VA will do it too. I'm pretty sure, though. I might be wrong. Light mode? Yeah, but then my eyes will get the burn-in. It's easier to replace a monitor than eyes. I will have to look into IPS image retention. That's interesting. Yeah, most modern OLEDs don't suffer from burn-in hard. Yeah, I don't think it's as bad. Can't be bothered to get my VA screen out to test it. That's fine. But yeah, so that's a fun thing that I keep out for, at least on this monitor. This is an Asus ProArt, by the way, so it's very definitely IPS. It's a Goodwill ProArt. All right, let's keep trucking here. We got an additional grease weasel with the same drives. They could reuse the existing troops, so it would still add 2 more drives. And 1 controller. Okay. PC with dual DVD drives. If you have a computer with 2 DVD drives. Actually, it's the exact same set. You know, I'll just leave the Grease Weasel description example. There we go. Okay. I need to remember this. So the user doesn't assign controllers or drives. They assign groups. Groups lead to drives being assigned when it finds the first drive that's available. I think the drive availability should also be determined by the controller availability. So 2, 2, 2, 2. I don't see it. Maybe I deleted it. It's fine. All right. All right. What was I doing? Action queue. I was defining this based on... Yeah, let's get rid of that. This. Okay, so drive is set automatically based on the group. Config data will need to exist, but I have that. And then their status. Okay, and then being added ID, data. Okay, that's all good. All right, data will be added after the fact. Okay, so that's table 1. All right. Now, data. Data. All right, ID underscore data. There's no reason to have current times or the start, but I do think it's worth tracking the generation time for this. So drive type foo and drive controller is idle. I'm not sure what you're trying to ask, but the idea is that you, let's say you just have a computer with 2 DVD drives in it. You would have a group that is 2 DVD drives. You could have a single controller for each DVD drive, or you could have different controllers for each DVD drive. It wouldn't really matter. And then you would have one drive per each DVD drive. But then when you put in media samples in the queue, it will automatically find which drive is free, the first drive free. It will automatically eject the disk for that drive, tell you to put a disk in that drive, and then you close it and it will start ripping automatically. And it just manages the drives with the controllers to open and close the trays, but the groups determine the capabilities of the drive and which ones you put in there. So the groups are what you actually set as far as how you want the disk to be ripped. It's kind of weird. It'll make sense once we get it running, but you can also just go back and look at how I use PyDiscRip to see it in action, but I'm going to carry that same ethos over because it makes more sense. Okay, data. So we have ID for the data. That'll work. Status still needs to exist. Data dir, that needs to exist. We'll change this to type. Data type, whatever. No format, no description, because these are all generated automatically. We'll put data path, and then data. Oh, that kind of. Well, this won't ever be stored in the database, I don't think. Data items. Okay. So here's an interesting point to consider. So we have, let me undo that, this. So I think we don't need to store this, the data files. Because if we know that this is flux, and we know what the data dir is, we could figure out that this is going to be a folder full of flux tracks. And the reason that I'm going that route is because kind of sucks to have this just be arbitrary data. I would have to just JSON serialize this and cram it in there because this is static. It's not something that I need to keep track of, and it's different for each data type because an image will have an image type. So yeah, I think we ditch that altogether and we derive it from this in real time. It might lead to more file calls, but it will lead to less insanity. Okay. So data files gets eliminated. All right. So path, and then I think that's it. Okay. And then we have to have data handled. Data underscore handled. So these would be these things processed by. So maybe we call this processed instead or something. Processed. So we have data ID, and then we would have process type. I don't know. Processor. So every time a data gets processed, it gets added to this. So we would just say, hey, does this need to be handled by this? We would queue this if this, or query this. And if this exists with this, then no, we don't need to reprocess it. Okay, I think that's it. So that's the setup. So let's rename some files here really quick. Close that. Do this. Go back to here. And then this will be media. Just media, whatever. Now let's call it media data. Media data, because they're all related. Okay. Oh boy, this is where this gets complicated now. So we have DB action queue. This becomes the wrapper for DB media. And then we will import this somewhere here. Get action queue. I feel like maybe I should have. Let me go grab a different example here. So I think the projector one makes a little bit more sense. So we have DB here. Yeah, I think this one's smarter. Let's use this as a base. Okay. So we definitely need to, from util, import DB. And then we will have media data. And then we have our database that wraps this. So we have DB I don't want to think about this. Oh, this is a lot of work. Man. Every time I think, like, we'll just knock this out, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's a lot. Okay. So we have table, media. I'm trying to decide table projectors. Yeah, I need to stop copy pasting so much. Let's just take a step back here. Well, this extends extended projector, but let's just let's take a step back here. So this would this video, create video. Yeah, okay. So let's define how we access the database as a Python class. So we're going to wrap each table with the calls, or do I want to wrap the object idea? So the idea is that we get a class that represents the media. What do we do with that? So we need to be able to get a list of these. So this is it's going to need to store all of the data types that are in the database at the very minimum. So def init oh man, this I need to let's trying to think about the best way to express this, and that will probably lead to figuring out how to continue here. So the way that I access this from the database is the core of the problem that I'm trying to solve by rewriting. So I'm trying to determine how I want to utilize this data and what that will mean for how we access it. Because this is where this starts to really matter. So at the absolute minimum, the first thing we're going to want to do is create a data object. So let's think about this. We will eventually have a form that will be part of this. So we'll do rip media. That will create a form that will have an API endpoint that when you send it data, it will add an uninitialized media to the database. So for media, let's just say we have a media object. We would have an init that would add it to the database? Yes. So def underscore init self, and then we would basically need all of this. Well, not necessarily. Well, actually, also those. But this can also all be JSON or JavaScript, because initially, no, a dictionary, because initially we're going to load it from a JSON file. If we reload it, and then the way that the form is going to work, it's going to pack it all as JSON to send. So we'll be able to send this as a payload no matter what. So then we have all of this that we need to incorporate here. So either way, if we reload a file or we add it through the web API, it needs to get immediately added into the database on creation. Unless the database already has it. So how can we track that? So maybe ID is null or not null. I think we have to look at that. So let's say payload default. Porter Smith, thank you for becoming a member over on YouTube. My apologies that there is no announcement on Deck Talk for that. I don't think I've ever had anyone. I'm not sure I've tracked the API stuff for that, but I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I will have to see if I can add that to the API so the Deck Talk can announce that in the future, or if it just broke the API or something. Actually, let me check. Be nice for Deck Talk to speak YouTube. Yeah, I keep trying and then it keeps not working every time. It's so frustrating. Let's see. Receive message, chat. So weird. On it, I think. Hold on, let me get past this giant thing. It received chat is like it died in the middle of processing it. That doesn't make sense. I don't get it. That's so weird. Hopefully that doesn't break the YouTube chat and stuff. I'm gonna keep the YouTube side up over there just so I can make sure. Yeah, the YouTube API is truly terrible. I wish it was easier to work with, but oh my gosh, it's so wonky. Okay, payload default. Let's just go ahead and dictionaryify this equals null equals none. It's null in JavaScript land, which this has to interact with, which is so much fun. These are date time objects, which do actually exist here. But I'm just gonna make them none for now, I think. We'll figure that out in a moment. Actually, is there any reason to do this at all? I mean, I guess I can comment it for myself so I understand how this works. I would like to have an example of what date time now. Well, I don't. Is there a video game thing happening on Twitch that most people are streaming that I am not aware of? I'm gonna guess that there is. I don't know what it would be. Oh well. Let's go. All right, let's just rip through a couple of these. Xbox Showcase. They just have to whip that up because PlayStation just came out. It was like, and here's Rayman again. Returned slightly refreshed. Hopefully slightly damp, too. Ben, I'm losing my mind. It's almost like this is a bad idea. It's going to be really complicated. Take a long time. Wait, I'm not supposed to be using double quotes. Suspect you're not currently at the top. Yeah, 0.1%. Yeah. So that's very optimistic of you, Diego. I don't think they're ever going to make that. They're going to release Skyrim version 12. The problem is every time I'm like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to work on this software again. Then I go to work on the other version, or I don't want to rewrite the software again. Then I go to work on the old code, and it's like, oh, actually, this sucks. And I got to do it anyway. For the Crazy Taxi World Tour. Is that the one where they introduce the new taxis and then they are all fighting to destroy all the buildings all at once? And then it's you travel to Washington D.C. and then now I have the character select music stuck in my head for that game. That's such a good game. It's a shame the PC version's such garbage. Status will equal 1 as the init. Okay. So that's kind of how this is gonna work. Wait, where's the start? I didn't get added. Yes, start. Okay. Okay, so we have a payload that we get sent that is roughly this. If payload ID media equal none, then we do db.action add payload. For Chip, thanks in advance. I will attempt to remember that. Yeah, Google really didn't give people a lot of choice in that, unfortunately. It's actually really annoying how Google went through that whole phase during Google Plus where like everyone's using their real name. You're all getting rid of your stupid usernames, or it's real names from here on out. And now they have the @ symbol Twitter handle names for everything instead. So annoying. Time is a flat circle. All right. So on init, if media ID or ID media equals none, then we don't add it. Or we, hold on, let me think about this. So the only way that this would be set, maybe we send it. I'm trying to think about how to handle this. There's two cute use cases I want to account for, starting with the DB existing, starting without the DB existing, because I would like to support the idea of having this manage a giant folder full of all your rips ever, but I kind of think it's a dumb idea, but maybe it would make sense for some people. I don't know. And you wouldn't want it to have to take 3 hours to rescan the entire thing if you're not clobbering the database, excuse me. You know, maybe we don't commit this on load. Maybe that's the idea. We could just have a def commit option. Def store. How about that? Store. Self. That would be DB action thing. Oh, man. Ugh. So if we rescan the files, we would store them. Or if they get added from the API, they get stored. Elsewise, they don't. Yeah, I think that makes sense. We just, this can be run outside of this. For the init, we're assuming that it's being initialized with a payload, though, so I need to go through and I need to set up all the stupid self parameters. So self dot ID media with this would not exist. Equal none. Insert into I think after this is run, I would need to do a read to get the key, the index. It would be, oh, I don't like that. Is there a way to get the primary key back after you create? So if I do an insert, can I get, is there a way that it returns the new primary key? Type Python insert get, sure, ID, whatever. Look for insert returning. That sounds excellent. Okay. Documentation. Insert. Returning clause, yes. Okay. I think that's standard phrasing. Tends to be it looks like it has it. So let's go here. Insert. You know what? Return. How did that phrase it over here? Returning. It doesn't have ret running? Boo. Returning. Let's go like returning clause. Okay. Insert into returning. Yes. Okay, that's excellent. I never knew about this. That's nice. Was your game for them to the e-reader? Yes. What about it? So returning ID media. I mean, we don't need as. That's whatever. Ret run. Oh, it was Robo Run 3D. Or not 3D, but it was just Robo Runner, actually. Named just whatever. Kind of like Media Basket here, just to get the project started. I was not that attached to the name. I was probably going to rename it to something Sector. Like Sector Sweep. Or something like that. Because the way that we ended up doing it was using the galaxy sectors as the seed from your spaceship to choose where you're warping into, and then you'd go clear out that sector of enemies. That was kind of the direction we were going, have it be the kind of roguelike, you know, shmup doodad. I would love to come back to that. I gotta figure that out. IDPI sector, yeah. It would be fun to return to that. I have forgotten everything, though, so... Ugh. Turning. I like that. That's going to be cool. Okay, insert into... media. Okay. I guess we can break apart the payload here. Payload. Working from home today? Yes, because we're just doing software development. There's no real reason to go to the office for this, so figured why waste the gas. Oh, there's a lot of things. Payload. We could skip ID, started, start, and end. Go straight to name. So payload, name. Name. Let's just let's get all these in there first. Name. Format. Description. There's 4 more things after that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Drive group. Drive, which gets set by the software after the fact. Config, which is just big old JSON dump. And then status. I kind of hate this part, but I understand how this works because this is the SQL injection prevention. You put in the question marks here that are basically say, take all of the values in this after and replace each sequential question mark with that. Because we could do insert into left join whatever on thingamadoodad, and it would be the same, but Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this because counting is for nerds. And then I'm going to select these, and for every one of these, I'm just going to do a question mark, and 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 another question mark, and a question mark. So, there we go. There we are. Alrighty. So now we will return ID media. We don't input that. So we start inputting name. And then we're going to do this a whole bunch. That's probably enough. Format, description, drive group. Actually, we don't need to send drive because that's going to get sent automatically. Drive group, config, and then status. All right. Change my mind. We're sending drive. Ow. The source code brought to you by the Riddler. Yeah. Here's the thing. If we're reloading this from a JSON serialized export into the folder, it will have all of that. I need 2 of these. I need one that is if stuff exists new, and then one. Yeah, let's just copy paste that, and then re-add. And then we'll add the other stuff. So drive group, config, status. Okay. Get rid of the extra ones here. Oh, Python gets so messy. I love how the idea of restricting your text to 80 columns just goes completely out the window when it comes to this stuff. I mean, just look at this long line nonsense. This is just terrible. In theory, I think I can break this here. But it's not really meant to work this way. And then I could do this, and then I think this is acceptable. I suppose this is the less stupid way of doing this, so perhaps I should. It just feels wrong. Like, this does not feel like Python-y syntax to me. But this is probably the less insane way of doing it. All right, so now we're going to add the media ID, the time started, time added. All right, so store if self dot me id underscore media is not none, or is none, then we add it as a new one, and then we will return this to get the ID. Return. Did I make modify return a value? Read, modify, self, cursor, execute. Ooh, that's... Python's indentation rules are insane. Yeah, I hate them. Man, if only Python could use braces, it would be the perfect language. I would have 0 complaints about Python if it used braces instead of significant white space. I really hate the significant white space. I've used Python for a long time now. I have come to terms with it. I don't like the significant white space. I still think that was a terrible idea. Because no matter what, you're not getting rid of brackets and stuff. It just isn't going to happen. They're still going to exist for complex data types. So all you did was make code statement blocks more difficult to delineate. What's your revision? What revision of your Python media archiving script is this? It's a new one. So I'm rewriting this as Media Basket, but this is going to be a direct replacement for PyDiscRip. So the previous version, here, I can run this in real time on this computer, to kind of demonstrate this. So if I do this, and then do discrip, -s, FB505-W. This may run, or it may die on not being able to find the grease weasel because it's not actually plugged in. I can just plug this in. So it wouldn't hurt for me to just explain exactly why I'm doing this. Here, let me kill this. Oh, you know what? It might be failing because I'm running this here. Let me kill that. Restart this. Maybe now it'll work. There we go. Okay. So this is the software that I have written. So we have floppy A, floppy B up here. We have the read queue, and then we have the output queue, or the output folder, however you want to think about it here. But the problem is that this is all fixed, and the way that it works is terrible. So you can see how it's, for one, doing a bunch of GET requests here. That's because this API is, it's not smart. It's not well designed, because I hadn't done anything like this before, and I didn't know how best to do it. So what it's doing is, in the background, it is constantly trying to query the web backend for things. So if we go to network here, you'll see that the JavaScript on this side, of course, it like just stopped or something, or it's not refreshing it here. It should be constantly, oh, I'm on the WebSocket one for some reason. There we go. It's constantly reading from some JSON endpoints that I've created to reload this stuff. If I select this and then wait, it deselects it because it's rebuilding the HTML every single time. There's a lot of weird, crusty, poorly thought out stuff like this in the software, but it works. It's just, it's not well suited to what I'm currently doing with it. So I'm trying to rewrite it to do better at what I'm trying to do. Because this branched off of the CD ripping repository that I have that does a bunch of stuff for managing CDs and decoding data and ripping FLACs and getting CDDB info. And then the GW tools repo, where I was trying to handle different floppy formats and decoding the data from that. I tried to merge those together, and then I tacked on a web interface for it, and then I added in controllers to support things like my CD ripping robots. And basically, every time I've rewritten this, the scope has increased in complexity, and I'm trying to rewrite it again to account for all of the scope creep that has happened, because the architecture for this is just not well suited to the web interface. It's not well suited to the CD changers. So I'm trying to rewrite it for the last time. Knock on. That's 2x4's real wood. Because it's difficult to do things. Like, let's say I wanted to rename this, I can't do it. There's no way to communicate from the web front end to the OS level that I want to rename it. Just as one example. So I'm trying to fix all my mistakes in one last revision. So that's what I'm trying to do. So here we go. Let's get cracking. I got an hour left. I feel like we did actually make progress today. And even if it doesn't seem like it was a lot of progress, I'm happy coming up with a way forward now, knowing that we're just going to do manual SQL stuff. That was solved. We'll try to get a query run through Python. Not sure that's going to happen today, but we'll see if we can. All right. I don't know if I should look at this in real time. Um, okay. We're adding 3 of these. Oop. Okay. 1, 3. Nope, we're adding 4. I need 1 more. Timestamp end. All right. And I'll also say this, because I do get asked this kind of a lot, about the break-even point for the time spent on writing this software versus having just ripped it manually. There is no break-even point, because I continue to get new software, but also because the ways in which I want to be able to post-process my existing rips change. And if I don't have a rigid structure to how I post-process stuff, I would basically have to re-rip everything again, depending on how I do it. So, like, for example, when I first started out writing PyDiscRip, I did not have a DVD drive with redumper flashed onto it. And if I had just started ripping everything with CDRDAO and DD Rescue, I wouldn't be able to, I would be going back through and re-ripping everything anyway with redumper. So it's one of those instances where just working on this and adapting it to the best tools available at the time is going to make it easier to redo things in the future. So it's never really done. Okay. I think I need to add 4 more of these. Which is a significant percentage there. And we don't need to return ID media because we'd already have it. Okay, that's a lot of question marks. You know what? I'm just going to do it this way. Make sure that's the correct number. There we go. Okay. I accidentally closed that. All right. Okay. Media is none. Add. And then else. Re-add. Okay. Oh. I think what we could do is, I think in the time that we have left, we could probably set it up to the point where we could get it to load this into the database, the payload, from a JS file. I think we could do that. JS file, JSON file. Dude, I hate JSON and JavaScript being so similar. JavaScript is just the worst name of all time. Because it's similar to Java, it's similar to JSON. Okay. Just for kicks, let me go back here. Let me rerun MD. Doesn't blow up. It does not blow up. Okay. LiveScript would be better. I would prefer LiveScript. Okay. It's absolutely other nothing. Yeah, oh, I know. Trust me, I know. I programmed with both Java and JavaScript. I know. Okay, from objects. Media data. Rename. No, I don't want to name that. Okay, kill that. Go back here. Media data, import media data. Okay, so I just want to do that, and then I'll rerun it, see if it blows up. It did, in fact, blow up. Okay. Can I assign to a literal... Oh, am I an idiot? Those equals should be colons. Replace equal with colon. Replace all. Boom. Save. Fair enough. Software. I'm just going to put this over here. We'll come back to that in a moment. I'm going to put this over here too. That way we can never come back to it. And then I'm going to pull this down. Okay. Media data from objects. Cannot import name media data. Because I called it media. Not media data. JavaScript exists and I don't like it. Boom. Okay. So that did not blow up. Good. Okay. Let's take this and put it here. Okay. I can actually do this not in web as well. I'm going to put this here. Confirm that that works. F5. Yep. All nice and happy. Okay. In main here, I'm going to load the thing. I think I can do config read. Config file. I don't think there's anything particularly special about this. Yeah, I'm just going to do a config read. The cheat. So config read status.json as media. Okay, make sure that that works. That does work. Okay, now I'm going to modify this so that everything matches. I'm going to get rid of everything I don't need. Status equal 4, whatever. Get rid of data. My complaint extends only as far as it's annoying that the name is JS and that JSON is also JS. That's as far as my thought process goes for being annoyed by it. Which is not smart. I will say that, but that's not why I want to complain about it. Okay, we have a name. We have format. It shouldn't be called format. It should be called media type. Because format implies more for floppies, especially. So we'll rename that before we continue. Description. Drive group. Drive is there. Get rid of ID. Config. Just be config. Okay, nothing extraneous, I believe. All right. Now we have to create a thing Actually, let me run it first, make sure it's not going to blow up. No. Okay. Close, 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 close. Okay, media data. So in theory, we should be able to create a media object. And then... Oh, I haven't done that yet. I need to break out the payload. Dang it. Uh, let's be as lazy as possible. Replace all. Commas, replace all. Self dot. Okay, how many? This, 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 and that. Okay. And then we do a load. What if the key doesn't exist? If ID underscore media in single quote strings bad shall be in payload. Do this. Else none. And then if that is in there, ID media added would be in there. Or it would be none. These are different. They have to be done individually. Right? Let me think about this. You know what? It doesn't hurt to wrap it. Whatever. I feel like there's probably a more Python-y way to do that, but I don't know what it is. I don't think it's the left join thing. Wait, format is a special media underscore type. All right. Oh, yeah, out of curiosity. Data structures. Does this need to be refreshed? Tables 3. Oh, okay. I'm going to close this. Discard. I'm going to delete the database and reopen it in a second here. Okay. I have to change this to use all of those. Okay, this is... Nah. All right. There was a reason I did that previously. Okay. All right. So all this, but then get rid of incoherent screaming. Yeah, it's self-inflicted, but all right. And then this would have the other ones that are not here. So media and added. ID and timestamp added. And it's just timestamp start and timestamp end. Okay. Then up here. Hold on. Well, this is one nice thing. I can just do kind of this and then this, that, or whatever. And then here are self dot and then replace and then this and then this. And then here I will just replace escape sequences, new line. Guess dot added as a period instead of a comma. Good catch. Thank you. Wow. Stream quality is better than I thought. That's 1 pixel that you managed to see, basically. That's, wow. Thank you. Okay. That's all good there. And then we do, well, basically everything but those here for this and for this. 1 pixel, dot 2, it's a comma. Well, period and a comma are very, very similar here. Maybe it's more like 3, I guess. There's a lot of sub-pixel aliasing there. It's not quite clear. Okay. Now I think in theory maybe that'll work. I'm going to delete db, start this. Does it make db? It does not make db. That's a little concerning. Looks pretty clear on my screen. I'm just surprised because usually my stream quality doesn't seem that good. That's all. Okay, we haven't actually made the media object yet. So sample just for Ben equals media. Boom. Okay. And now it blew up. Okay. Key error media type in 146. I'm not surprised. That's really annoying that we're already seeing frustrating stuff like that. 146. Media type. How is it not? Because it's format over here. Boom. Okay. Run. All right. It just made nothing. But F5. How did it not make a database? What? Web. Oh, because we didn't run store. That's how. Yeah. MB sample store. All right, self. Yes. Okay, here we go. This should initialize the database and add the JSON file. DB is not defined. Cool. Okay. Is it because it is media data DB? Oh, it's media.db. Okay. Media.db. Buh. Okay. Table media has no column name media type. Okay. Ah, that's true. I did not update the schema file. Here it is. It's still format media underscore type. Okay. It did create it though, so let's delete that. Restart and incorrect number of bindings supplied. No. Line 40. Okay. Knew it was inevitable. But how's it line 40? Oh, it's line 79. Re-add. Yeah, that's correct. Didn't I do it like perfectly though? Hold on. Let's do this. Clear this. Uh-huh. 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 Now the other way. Each one of these needs to show up there. Drive is not there. Beyond drive group. We need drive. Drive. And then I'm an idiot. These are all supposed to be question marks. There we go. That should solve it. Ooh, okay. So this is wrong, which it should be. Okay. So init for config. Let's do config. We have it JSON imported, right? Okay. JSON dumps, I believe. And we do this. Payload config string. And then we do this and this. And then if we ever modify that, we will have to redo that. There we go. Okay. So now we run this again. We drop that on there. No database opened. Fine, whatever. No, I don't want a new one. Open, DB, media, browse. There we go. Okay. We successfully added a data to a thing. What's up? We SQL'd. Oh, we still have 44 minutes left. We made more progress than I realized. Okay. We might have time to store a whole thing in here, actually. Okay. Making good progress. Oh. I might want to change this.
Ultimate says and the crowd goes wild. Cheer 100. End of line.
And thank you for the 100 bits. I appreciate that. More than usual, because I know this is a very boring stream. That is good though. It is working. I'm happy with that. Okay. So I would like to get the data stuff working. So here we have table data. The data table will be a lot easier, thankfully. So back to media data. We're going to make a new class. If the Twitch getting the usual bit purchase amount. Oh, that's annoying. Okay, so the data samples are never going to be created from scratch. It'll always be added or Uh-oh. Oh, no. I think I just realized why we would want the ORM, and now I feel like an idiot.
End of line subscribed with Prime. They've subscribed for 46 months, currently on a 46-month streak. And says end of line. End of line.
Did you change your name through the thing? Or how it pronounces? Yeah, it might. I guess it's a custom name. I did not realize. That is, in fact, set. Okay, yeah. Cool. Kurt, thank you for the Prime sub there and for 46 months. I appreciate that. No, Deck Talk is fine. That's as it should be, it seems. Okay. Anyway, let me explain this. Okay. So we have the SQL like this. Okay. I have my object in code here, the media sample. Okay. And I want to edit an existing data. All right. So we have sample. We have sample data flux, right? And I want to add the files. So files, or I want to set the dir. Like, let's say dir equals the folder what done held the files. All right, so say I want to set that, okay? In order to store that now, I have to look up whether or not this already exists. And then I have to find the key, and then I have to run an update query on this, which means that the ID has to be stored. Dude, this sucks. I don't like this. All right, let me ask this, Ben. SQL Academy. Let's just... For alchemy. When does it store the class? When does it get committed to the database? Does it get committed on every modification? Or do I run a... Oh, man. Create engine SQLite. Never used any form of ORM in Python. All right, no problem then. Using table metadata, create objects, and persist. Okay, session, user, name, SpongeBob, full name, someone's work hands, address is this. Create user Sandy. Patrick, session, add all. Oh, that's weird. Okay, so you commit. Okay. So you would then go back, reselect them, and then I assume select with join. Oh my gosh, it's... Dude, it's so weird. Yeah, Ben, I kind of get that. What on earth is that? Select where user is Patrick, then we get the SQL statement, and then I guess we just pick the first one off the top. We add an address. And then where is it added? Because it's already in the session, I assume. I don't know what the Sandy one is. I assume Sandy would... I think they're going to say that Sandy would not be. When we access Patrick's address, select was omitted. It's called lazy load, background on different ways to access something or another. I assume that this one doesn't get updated. Yeah, the problem is finding the ID later. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at here, because... Yeah, this has got a lot more complicated to manage. I think I don't want to use an ORM, but I think I have to. I think due to the complexity and depth, not in the complexity of scale, I should use it, but... I guess if they're saying... Well, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand the sessionness. Oh, I'm going to have to really play around with this. I don't have time to do this right now. I just straight up don't. I just don't. this is way more complicated than I thought. I'm going to have to make like a small project that just tests this. I mean, I guess the initial version of Media Basket can kind of be that, but yeah, this is a whole other concept. All right. Oh my gosh, deletes. Yeah, that's got to be a whole different thing entirely. Session running. Too much magic compared to the core? Too much magic? It's like it's almost just raw mapping SQL commands to Python stuff. What do you? I don't get the magic. Like this select somewhere in here. Select user where username in this. That's like just straight SQL ported to Python. I would love to know why you don't like it. In that it seems magic to me. It seems just like surface layer mapping SQL directly to Python syntax. All right, Ben. So what I'm going to interpret that as is this is your shadow RAM copy of the database, and then it tracks diffs you make to the shadow RAM copy, and then when you commit, it just updates the actual database to match your shadow RAM copy. 100%. Okay, what's my estimate for how many disks? It's thousands. Like, it's a lot. And again, it doesn't matter quite how many it is, because I need to be able to re-rip, and I need to be able to have the extraction. Just thinking that the end goal is 1 bin queue per disk is not quite grasping it. And it's not just CDs, it's floppies. And oh my gosh, floppies. It's so many, so many. Is that similar to a transaction? I think a transaction would be an individual update. So just updating one thing. It works out what changes need to be made in what order. Project is bigger than a stack of disks. I was just curious. Yeah, I don't have an exact number. Let me put it this way. I would not be surprised if I have 200 plus 8-inch floppies for just S100. Just as a perspective. A transaction is multiple? Okay, I got no idea what any of this is. Like this is just straight up SQL. Okay, so here's one thing, Ben, that's confusing me about the session context thing. I'm going to assume that they are... Well, no, they are not pretending that this is all running in one interpreter session. Because here's the import session. Oh, then they import select. They do not re-import session. Okay. So they have their one session here. They do this. Statement happens. Okay. So session is a static instance that gets updated, kind of like request in Flask, the web server. So that's a magic thing I don't like. That I will agree with. Here, just as an example. Request. So here we have we import request as a module. And then here we await the module to build this data because we use request to get the data. So this feels like a parameter, but it isn't. And I think that's how they are similarly using it here. So session gets imported as a class, but then you specify your specific engine for SQLite or something. And then this gets updated in the background because we make, it processes the statement here. Okay. Okay, this builds our SQL command. We execute the command on this using whatever scalars is. Okay. Build the SQL command. Execute it. Retrieve the first one, I assume. Select where Sandy. So yeah, they're assuming it would always be the first one. So session executes that statement. It's still connected to the same engine. Sandy address exists here. That is purely the address object. Okay. Then here, they build their SQL statement for selecting Patrick. They execute the statement, return the top one. On whatever the last statement execution is. There can be only one, or get it or error out if there is more than one. Okay. Then they use the sub script, whatever. They're adding an address. So then they're changing the Sandy address. But because Sandy address was retrieved up here, it is still within the scope of the session. Session object in conjunction with our ORM mapped user and address automatically track changes to the objects as they are made, which result in SQL statements that will be emitted the next time the session flushes. Below, we change one email address associated with Sandy and also add a new email address to Patrick after emitting a select to retrieve the row for Patrick. This is weird. I don't like this because this feels like something I would make. I feel like I've done horrible stuff like this. Finding the choices here a little weird too. Should look at the core documentation. So SQL Academy core, is that like a different thing? For SQL Academy, okay. Documentation. Current documentation. So I was looking at ORM, not core. Is that the difference? Core. Connection schema management. Okay. SQL rendering engine, DB API integration. Schema language or documented here. Manual steel statements building off fire and query. Yeah, see that again. That's where it feels like it's too thin. It's not doing enough to justify its existence. It seems like they did just enough to make the rights worth putting up with the bad reads. I'm not sure what I'm looking for here. I don't know. This is a weird one. I don't know how I want to handle this. Yeah, maybe it's... I mean, is this just abstracting the SQL backend? Is that what it's essentially doing? So I could replace, say, the, not that. I could replace this with SQL Academy Core or Alchemy Core so that I don't have to do the SQLite stuff. Because I don't find the SQLite stuff to be that problematic. Okay. Yeah, that's... It's not much above that? Okay. So I'm never going to need to replace the backend from SQLite, so I don't... It doesn't matter to me that it's permanently tied to the database. Matter of fact, the database I am considering temporary. I might even just put it in /temp. Because it should... The actual content should be stored in the JSON files with the output. That's the production output. Because that allows re-importing them into a different session later. The database is exclusively for runtime management, is how I'm seeing it. Doing memory SQL, yeah, like I might even do that. That could make sense. The only reason I'm considering supporting reloading the disk database is for handling stuff like crashes or, power cut. Or maybe you hear a disk doing something horrible and you just shut down the whole system so you don't ruin it, and then you need to continue ripping other stuff and decoding things. And you don't want the current status lost because let's say you spent like an hour loading in your queue. So something like that, it would make sense to be able to reload the existing database. But yeah, the database is not the core thing. Love that jar of GIF. Never agree with the hard G. That was the promotional one. So it, I think, is now expired by 2 years. I meant to open it and use the peanut butter because I like peanut butter. And then just like spray paint the inside of the jar brown, and then I didn't get to it. Because I had other jars of peanut butter always, and it was always on the shelf for display purposes. So, oh well. Huh. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe I should reevaluate the software architecture and then determine what the best suited database architecture is to work with that. You have the hair for it already. Trying to combine two distinct things: job manager doing a thing and the data you want to persist. Yeah, that's kind of why maybe I should look at the job manager kind of thing. Because what I'm seeing here, yeah, I think that's all fine. What I'm seeing is the issue with PyDiscRip. Is how much stuff has to work by just copying data in memory, and I would really like to avoid doing that. So Q rip drive groups, okay? So while run. So this is the entry point that it starts running. So it tracks for the JSON files in the input folder. When a new JSON file is found, so if it's not yeah. So for blah 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 new false. So if it's a new one, then it loads the data raw sample, it builds up the information about it here. And then it will eventually, somewhere around here, add it. We have to get the media handler for it. We load the config data into it. We, copy in any photos. Handler web update. We add it to the web interface. Somewhere around here, we're adding it to the media sample name, yeah. If new. Oh, that's weird. We don't, actually add that anywhere. No wonder this sucks so much. So for media samples, in media samples. So essentially, the problem becomes where it forks all the time. So here, we copy in all the media sample data to the process, and then it hard forks. I can't copy data back to this section. So the web interface gets updated by having that process then update the status in different areas. So it's not even that, it's rip auto. So rip auto has callbacks to the web update here. So this is where this gets super dumb. Is this basically calls its own API over the web interface to update the cached JSON files that the user's client calls to actually read the data status. So it calls this to do that. Whereas this should just be like a write to the SQL database that everything reads from to update the status of what it's doing or something. Yeah, because the logic here, the status of everything going on, yeah. So the status here is this all runs as the actual headless server in the background. it has to update, ideally, the database that the user queries. But the database needs to hold all of the information, like what the media sample's name is, what drive it's in, what the drive is currently doing with it, or if it finished, and what the like example image is from it for the floppy disk, for the flux map. So all that needs to be held in the database so that when the client connects, they can just receive all of that data that way. Like, the only reason that this writes to the JSON files in this folder is because there is no way into this run point once it goes into this loop to update the RAM. So replacing this with a database call from the web front end where a new item gets added to the queue is one example of one of the things that I want to do, because this is a kludge for the fact that the web front end that updates the user can't actually get data into this. So this should be like once every loop, which probably, as a sleep, should be doing an SQL query where it gets the list of all of the items in the queue. And then in this case, we would actually be able to filter out where the status equals, say, 1 still, where they're waiting to be done. Or maybe instead of, because it doesn't actually have to manage that here by watching if they're new or something, it could just skip to this, where it tracks if there's any drives free first. And then if there's a drive free, it could go ahead and then query if there's any waiting items in the queue. I think I managed to kludge myself into a very complicated program that somehow works. And trying to tear it down and rebuild it in a way that is architecturally sound is, turns out we gotta, like, reverse engineer all the kludges, and that's hard. Hey, Dziak. You have a persistent media database. So that is a folder with files in it. Yes. And then the files also have a JSON file next to them that describes what the files are. So that's part of it. The job database, it does do that. But then the job database is also, because there's a web front end, the job database doubles as the way for the user's front end to be able to access the data. So that's part of that. And I wouldn't say the media gets assigned a job with multiple stages, but that's kind of how it works. It gets assigned a job with one stage, and then it finishes. But then it admits that there is this new thing available. And then that new thing available gets passed through all of the processors. And then for each processor that is able to work on it, they process that data, and then they mark it as having been processed. Maybe there's a different logic flow that I can use for that. Yeah, maybe. Network switches logic, yeah. But yeah, the media data from the web front end, the user specifies what they're inputting. The web front end will send form data to a HTML API, which will then commit it to the database. Then in the background, a looping task will be reading the SQL database. It will see that there is a queued item, and then it will check if there's a free drive. It will then assign it to that. Then it will update in the SQL database that the item has been updated, which will also cause a WebSocket update to fire that will tell the client this has changed on the front end. So just as an example, because I haven't actually talked about the WebSocket stuff at all yet. But if the client like just closes the browser and then reopens it, they should be able to query the current state of everything as well. So the WebSocket part just updates the front end so they don't have to do a full page load every time. So yeah, this is a harder challenge than I thought. All right. Well, I think we're going to call it there for now. Let me commit everything I've got here for the moment. Git status. So git add objects. Let's just add the media data and the SQL because I don't want it to add the hash files, and then git add util db at status. I think that's it. Yeah. Git commit -am SQL is hard, yo. Git push. All right. Well, I'm going to have a good think about how to proceed with this. Kind of made progress, but also kind of didn't make progress. I'm not exactly sure how I want to go about this. I think maybe I would be better off rethinking how this aspect works, this relational part. That perhaps there is a more optimal way of doing this, and that reassessing that might be the way to go. So I think I will contemplate that. But I don't know what kind of progress I'm going to make or whatnot, because I do need to actually work on the other videos still. So, yeah. But all right, I will call that there. And with that, it is outro time. All right, I am wrapping it up a little early. Yeah, if you want to shout out any ideas, you can do that on Discord. But yeah, and that's it for now. Wrapping it up a little early because yeah, there's just need to have a good think. So, if you enjoyed this stream, you may want to follow to be notified when the horse grinding out. Yeah, no, I gotta really. I think I need to plan a little more higher level non-code planning. But yeah. Anyway, if you enjoyed this stream, you may want to follow to be notified when I go live again next. If you want to help support the channel, find me on Patreon or get a shirt like the ones that I wear at the office. But that's it for now, and I will see you next time. On that, there was a video yesterday. You may want to watch it and then go look at the comments and see me getting yelled at. It's a lot of fun.